Welcome to Empath Healing Hub, where empaths learn, heal, and feel safe. If you are listening to this, something in your life has likely been heavy for a long time. You may have loved someone deeply. You may have tried to be understanding, patient, forgiving, and compassionate. And somewhere along the way, you may have started to feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from giving emotionally without being met. A quiet, invisible fatigue that builds when you are always the one holding the relationship together. If that feels familiar, I want you to know something gently and clearly. You did not imagine that weight. Empaths experience the world through emotional connection. You don't just think about people, you feel them, you sense their moods, their needs, their unspoken pain. And because you feel so deeply, you often love deeply too. That depth is beautiful. It is also what makes you especially vulnerable in certain kinds of relationships. Today, we are going to talk about why narcissistic people are drawn to empaths. Not in a blaming way, not in a shaming way, but in a way that helps you finally understand what happened and why it hurt so much. So for this moment, let your shoulders drop a little. Let your breath slow and allow this space to hold you. You don't have to analyze yourself while you listen. You don't have to figure anything out right now. Just listen. Empaths are not just kind people. They are people whose nervous systems are wired for emotional awareness. You notice tone. You notice energy. You notice when something is off, even if no one says a word. Your body reacts to emotional shifts just as strongly as it reacts to physical ones. This is not something you chose. It is something you learned. Many empaths grew up in environments where emotional awareness was a form of safety. Perhaps someone in your home was unpredictable. Perhaps there was tension, anger, sadness, or emotional distance. And as a sensitive child, you learned that noticing people's moods mattered. So you became observant. You became careful. You learned to read faces, silence, and energy. You learned how to adapt yourself to keep the emotional environment stable. That was not weakness, that was survival. And that survival skill became empathy. As an adult, that means you can feel when someone is hurting. You can feel when someone is disconnected. You can feel when someone needs reassurance. You don't have to be told. You just know, and because you know, you respond, you comfort, you explain, you give, you try to make things okay. This is the heart of being an empath. Now let's talk about the other side of this dynamic. A narcissistic personality is not just someone who is self-centered or arrogant. At their core, narcissistic people have a very fragile sense of self. They do not feel emotionally steady inside their own bodies. They often feel empty, insecure, unseen, unworthy. But instead of feeling those things directly, they protect themselves by seeking validation from outside. They look for people who can make them feel important, loved, admired, and powerful. They use attention and emotional energy from others to regulate themselves. They do not soothe themselves. They are soothed by others. This is why they feel drawn to people who are emotionally available. When a narcissistic person meets an empath, something important happens. For the first time in a long time, they feel emotionally held. An empath listens. An empath cares. An empath notices. You make people feel seen. And to someone who feels empty inside, that feels like relief. They feel calmer around you. They feel more real around you. They feel more alive around you, so they become focused on you. Not because they understand you, but because you make them feel good. To an empath, this attention feels like connection. To a narcissist, it feels like supply. Both are feeling something intense, but they are not feeling the same thing. This is why these relationships often begin with so much intensity. You feel, this is deep. This is special. This is rare. They feel, I finally feel important. And because both of those feelings are powerful, the bond forms quickly. You open up. They open up, or at least appear to. You share. They mirror. It feels like you are finally being met. But what is really happening is that your empathy is being reflected back to you. You are seeing yourself, and that is why it feels like love. If any of this feels familiar, take a moment. You didn't make this up. You didn't imagine it. You were feeling something real. But you were also being pulled into a dynamic that was not built on mutual emotional reality. And that is what we are here to understand. When a narcissistic person begins to feel emotionally nourished by you, the relationship often starts to change in subtle ways. At first, they may seem deeply engaged. They listen. They ask questions. They seem curious about your inner world. But over time, something shifts. Their interest becomes less about you and more about how you make them feel. They begin to expect emotional availability. They begin to lean on you. They begin to rely on your attention, your care, and your understanding. And because you are an empath, you give. You don't give because you are weak. You give because you feel. You sense when someone needs comfort. You sense when someone is hurting, and you want to help. So you do. You reassure. You listen. You explain. You stay. This creates a powerful emotional pattern. The narcissistic person learns, when I feel bad, this person will be here. Your nervous system learns, when this person feels bad, I must help. Neither of you consciously chose this. It developed quietly. Over time, the balance changes. The narcissistic person begins to give less emotional effort. They may still want your presence. They may still want your attention, but they are less willing to meet your needs. They may interrupt you, dismiss your feelings, become defensive when you express pain, withdraw when you need support. And because you are deeply invested, you don't immediately walk away. You try to understand. You try to explain. You try to fix. This is where the relationship becomes painful. You start to feel, I am doing so much. Why do I feel so alone? Empaths often believe that love means patience, that if you just explain a little better, if you are just a little more understanding, if you just give a little more, things will go back to how they were. But what you are really doing is trying to return to the early emotional intensity, the part that felt safe. Your nervous system remembers how connected you felt in the beginning, and it keeps reaching for that. This is not foolishness, this is biology. When a relationship is intense, unpredictable, and emotionally charged, the nervous system forms a trauma bond. You become attached, not just to the person, but to the emotional highs and lows. The moments of closeness feel euphoric. The moments of distance feel devastating. So you keep trying. You keep hoping. You keep staying. Not because you don't see the problem, but because your body is still searching for relief. You may find yourself thinking, I know this hurts, but I also love them. That conflict is the trauma bond. Your mind sees the pain. Your nervous system remembers the connection. Both feel true. And that is what makes these relationships so hard to leave. If you were told you were too sensitive, too emotional, too needy, I want you to hear this clearly. You were not too much. You were responding to a relationship that was not emotionally safe. Your feelings made sense. Your needs were real. Your longing was human. Take a breath here. You do not need to judge yourself for what you stayed through. You stayed because you loved. You stayed because you hoped. You stayed because your nervous system was attached. There is nothing shameful about that. Take a slow breath with me for a moment. Not to relax, not to fix anything, just to arrive. Because what we are about to talk about lives in the body, not just the mind. You can understand narcissistic abuse intellectually for years and still find yourself drawn back into the same type of relationship. That's because this dynamic is not primarily psychological. It is nervous system based. And when two nervous systems meet, an empaths and a narcissists, they lock together in a way that feels like chemistry, but is actually dysregulation. Let's talk about that. If you are an empath, your nervous system learned very early in life that safety came from reading other people. You learned to notice changes in tone, shifts in mood, subtle emotional cues, unspoken tension. You became highly attuned to what others were feeling, because at some point, that awareness kept you safe. You may have grown up around emotional volatility, unpredictability, withdrawal, criticism, instability. So your body adapted. Your nervous system became alert, sensitive, responsive, emotionally open. This made you compassionate. It made you intuitive. It made you loving. But it also made you vulnerable to someone whose nervous system operates in the opposite way. Narcissistic personalities are not calm, confident, or self-assured on the inside. They are deeply dysregulated. Their nervous systems are often flooded with shame, hyper-defensive, emotionally avoidant, chronically unsafe. They learned early that vulnerability was dangerous, so instead of feeling emotions, they learned to control their environment. Instead of connecting, they learned to dominate. Instead of soothing themselves, they learned to extract soothing from others. And when they encounter an empath, they feel something they rarely feel: regulation. An empath's nervous system radiates warmth, openness, safety, emotional presence. This is intoxicating to someone who lives in inner chaos. When a narcissistic personality meets an empath, their body says, "This person calms me. This person makes me feel seen. This person makes my anxiety quiet down." But instead of learning how to regulate themselves, they attach, they lean, they pull, they feed. Not out of love, but out of nervous system dependency. And the empath feels something too. They feel needed, important, chosen, emotionally bonded. It feels powerful. It feels deep. It feels meaningful. But it is actually a trauma bond forming in real time. You may remember the early phase of the relationship, the eye contact, the long conversations, the emotional intimacy, the feeling of being truly seen. That wasn't fake, but it wasn't stable either. It was two dysregulated nervous systems locking into a pattern of pursuit and withdrawal, emotional highs and lows, intensity and collapse. Your body mistook intensity for love, because your nervous system has been trained to feel alive in emotional chaos. That is not a character flaw, that is a trauma response. When you try to leave a narcissistic relationship, it doesn't just hurt emotionally, it hurts physically. You may feel anxious, shaky, panicked, empty, sick, restless, disconnected. That is not because you need them. That is because your nervous system has become addicted to the regulation they were temporarily providing. Even though the relationship was painful, it was familiar. And the nervous system prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Healing does not mean becoming colder, being less empathetic, closing your heart. It means teaching your nervous system what real safety feels like, learning to self-soothe, learning to regulate without chaos, choosing connection that is calm, not intense. Empaths are not meant to suffer. They are meant to feel deeply. In relationships that are stable enough to hold that depth, take a slow breath again. You didn't imagine this connection. But it wasn't love either. It was two nervous systems finding each other in the dark, and you are learning how to step into the light. Let's slow everything down, because what we are about to talk about has confused millions of people into staying in relationships that were quietly breaking them. You didn't stay because you were weak. You didn't stay because you were foolish. You didn't stay because you didn't know better. You stayed because your body believed it was love. And that belief came from something called a trauma bond. A trauma bond is not a psychological attachment. It is a biological one. It forms when intense emotional connection, fear, longing, validation, withdrawal, relief, all happen in cycles. Your brain releases dopamine when they come close, cortisol when they pull away, oxytocin when they show tenderness. This chemical roller coaster creates addiction. Your body learns, this person controls my emotional state. That feels like love, but it is actually dependency. In the beginning, a narcissistic partner often feels magical. They mirror you, admire you, make you feel special, seem emotionally deep. Your nervous system lights up. You feel chosen, seen, wanted, important. Those feelings are real, but they are not stable. They are being manufactured through attention and withdrawal, just like a slot machine. You never know when you'll get affection. So when it happens, it hits harder, and you start chasing it. When the narcissist withdraws, ignores you, criticizes you, becomes cold, creates conflict, your nervous system panics. Your brain starts thinking, what did I do? How do I fix this? How do I get back to how it was? That panic is not love. It is withdrawal, just like any addiction. And when they come back, even briefly, even softly, the relief feels overwhelming. You mistake that relief for connection. People who haven't experienced trauma bonds often say, why don't you just leave? They don't understand that leaving feels like grief, panic, withdrawal, emptiness, fear, identity loss, because your nervous system attached to them as a regulation source. They became your emotional anchor, your mirror, your sense of safety, even if they were hurting you. Empaths feel deeply. They bond quickly. They invest emotionally. They love wholeheartedly. That is beautiful. But in the presence of someone who uses love as leverage, that depth becomes a hook. The narcissist does not bond through love. They bond through control. Real love does not feel like walking on eggshells, chasing validation, anxiety, emotional confusion, fear of losing them. Real love feels steady, warm, safe, calm, mutual. If your relationship felt intoxicating, painful, and euphoric all at once, that was not love. That was a trauma bond. And now that you can see it, you can begin to release it. Take a slow breath. You are not broken. You are biologically hooked, and hooks can be removed. Let's talk about the pattern. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and seeing it is the first step toward freedom. The narcissist-empath relationship doesn't move forward, it moves in circles, always the same 4 stages, over and over. Stage 1, idealization. This is when everything feels magical. They praise you, focus on you, make you feel special, seem emotionally deep, seem to truly see you. Your nervous system relaxes. You think, this feels right. This is when the bond forms. Stage 2, devaluation. Slowly, something changes. They criticize you, become distant, withdraw affection, create conflict, make you doubt yourself. You try harder. You give more. You think, if I just love better, it will go back. This is when the trauma bond tightens. Stage 3, discard or threat of loss. They pull away, sometimes emotionally, sometimes physically, sometimes with silence. Your nervous system panics. You feel desperate, afraid, confused, abandoned. This is when you lose your sense of self. Stage 4, hoovering. Then they come back, not always fully, sometimes with apologies, affection, promises, warmth. Your body floods with relief. You think, they do care, and the cycle resets. Because every time you almost leave, the hope comes back. And hope is more powerful than pain. Your nervous system remembers the good moments and forgets the suffering. That's not weakness, that's biology. Empaths believe in growth. They believe in healing. They believe in connection. So when something breaks, they look inward. The narcissist looks outward. That difference keeps the cycle alive. The cycle ends when you stop explaining, you stop fixing, you stop hoping, you start choosing yourself. Not with anger, with clarity. Take a slow breath. You are not crazy. You are caught in a loop designed to keep you small. and now you're stepping out of it. There comes a moment. It may not be dramatic. It may not be loud. It may not even feel strong. But something inside you quietly says, I can't do this anymore. That moment is not weakness. It is the beginning of your return to yourself. When you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop trying to fix, there is a sudden quiet. And that quiet can feel terrifying because your nervous system has been living in emotional noise for so long that stillness feels unfamiliar. You may think, I feel empty. I feel lonely. Something is missing. What is missing is the chaos you became used to, not love. Even when a relationship was painful, there were moments that felt real. You grieve. The version of them you hoped for, the future you imagined, the love you wanted to give. That grief is not proof you should go back. It is proof you are human. You may feel restless, anxious, emotionally raw, unsure who you are. This is not because you made the wrong choice. It is because your nervous system is learning a new pattern. It is detoxing from emotional addiction. Little by little, your body begins to settle. You breathe deeper. You think more clearly. You feel more like yourself. You realize, I don't have to earn peace. You begin to choose. Calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-respect over attachment. This is not selfish. This is healing. Empaths were not meant to shrink. They were meant to shine gently, in spaces that do not demand their suffering. Choosing yourself is not the end of love. It is the beginning of real love. Take a slow breath. You are not losing anything. You are coming home. After a narcissistic relationship ends, many empaths don't feel relieved. They feel lost, not because they miss the pain, but because they forgot who they were while surviving it. Rebuilding is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before you learned to disappear. Before growth comes safety, your nervous system needs to learn, I am not in danger anymore. That comes from predictable routines, gentle environments, calm voices, low emotional conflict, physical rest. You are not being lazy. You are retraining your body. You may feel anger, sadness, relief, grief, confusion, numbness. All of it is valid. Healing is not about feeling positive. It is about feeling truthfully. Narcissistic relationships center around the narcissist. Your needs, your dreams, your preferences fade. Now you get to ask, what do I like? What feels good? What brings me peace? This is not selfish. This is restoration. Healthy love does not confuse you, scare you, drain you, make you question your worth. Healthy love feels steady, warm, respectful, emotionally safe. You don't have to fight for it. You didn't waste time. You learned. You grew. You survived something that changed you. And now you are building something new, gently and bravely. Take a slow breath. Your life is not over. It is beginning again. One of the greatest fears after a narcissistic relationship is this. What if I fall into this again? That fear is not weakness. It is wisdom waking up. Avoiding repetition is not about becoming guarded or closed off. It is about becoming aware. Empaths attract narcissists because of emotional depth, compassion, attunement, patience, loyalty. These are beautiful traits. The problem was never your heart. The problem was who had access to it. Narcissists do not announce themselves. They show up as intense charm, fast attachment, emotional mirroring, love bombing, instant connection. Real intimacy grows slowly. If someone rushes closeness, they are not building connection. They are skipping consent. Your body always knows before your mind. If you feel anxious, unsure, tense, small, confused, that is information You do not need proof, you need self-trust. Boundaries do not block love. They filter it. Someone who respects your boundaries is showing you how they will treat your heart. You see patterns now. You notice tone shifts. You feel energy. You recognize emotional inconsistency. This is not paranoia. This is discernment. You are not here to repeat your past. You are here to rise from it. After trauma, love can feel unfamiliar. Calm feels boring. Consistency feels strange. Kindness feels suspicious. That doesn't mean healthy love is wrong. It means your nervous system is still learning what safety feels like. Not dull, not empty, predictable. You know where you stand, how you will be treated, that your feelings matter. There is no emotional guessing game. You don't have to chase. You don't have to prove. You don't have to earn affection. Both people give. Both people listen. Both people care. You can say how you feel without fear. You can have needs without being punished. You can exist without walking on eggshells. You don't feel panicked, obsessive, hypervigilant, desperate. You feel grounded. You feel seen. You feel steady. Empaths do not need to suffer to be loved. You deserve gentleness, respect, emotional honesty, warmth, not chaos, not confusion, not pain. Take a slow breath. Your heart is not a battlefield. It is a sanctuary. Take a moment, not to think, not to analyze, just to notice your body. Notice where you are sitting. Notice your breath. Notice that you are here. You made it through something that changed you. You loved deeply. You hoped. You tried. You endured. And even if that relationship hurt you, it also showed you how much capacity for love lives inside your heart. That capacity was never the problem. It was never too much. It was simply offered to someone who could not hold it. Healing is not about erasing what happened. It is about understanding it. Understanding brings compassion. Compassion brings clarity, and clarity brings peace. You are not broken. You were in a dynamic that was never meant to be balanced, and now you are learning how to choose yourself. That choice is not loud. It is quiet. It happens in small moments. When you listen to your body, when you honor your feelings, when you step back instead of chasing, when you choose peace over chaos, those moments add up. They become a new life. You don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to become someone else. You simply get to become yourself again. Gentle, aware, strong, and worthy of safe love. Thank you for spending this time here. Thank you for letting these words sit with you. Welcome to Empath Healing Hub. You are safe here.